Hello, everyone. I'm Allison, and you are listening to Play It Forward on WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM. Happy Friday, everyone.
Friday and happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope you all had a wonderful, happy Thanksgiving and everybody got along. Alongside me is my co-host and fellow advocate of Play It Forward, Kurt Hall. Momentarily, we will introduce a very special guest. We have Mandy from Maryland with us. But let's pass the mic to Kurt for a closer look at what Play It Forward is all about.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. A little bit about the Play It Forward project, which is a nonprofit that raises awareness, educates, and advocates in the fight against the opioid crisis, focusing on prevention and recovery through peer-to-peer advocacy. On our show, we bring in guests from the field of addiction, people in recovery, and more. We discuss illicit drugs, fentanyl, and substance use disorder, and towards 2 p.m., we shout out some accessible resources, so please tune back in then and pay attention. We broadcast from Stony Brook University's radio station live every other Friday from 1 to 2 p.m., and we are now live streaming our previous episodes on Spotify under Play It Forward and on our YouTube channel at the Play It Forward Project, where you can listen to our previous shows on the go. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram at sbu.playitforward. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to get some reviews. If you have any questions, suggestions for guests, we'd love to hear them all. So please reach out to us again at sbu.playitforward on Instagram. And here is Allison to introduce our guest.
Thank you, Kurt. Our guest today is Mandy from Maryland. Mandy is a recovery superstar. She's been through a lot and she has a lot to share. I find it amazing and courageous that she's willing to share her whole story, the meat and the potatoes, as Kurt would usually put it. And she's incredibly inspiring. And congratulations on your recovery, Mandy. So introduce yourself to our listeners.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Mandy. Like Allison already said, I'm from Maryland. I'm 38 years old. I've been in recovery for a blessed 18 months. Thank you. It's been a roller coaster of a ride, but we will get there. So I guess I just kind of want to start from the beginning, say a little bit about my childhood. I did have a pretty traumatic childhood. I grew up in a broken home. My mother left my biological father when I was very young, and through interactions with him, sustained a lot of abuse and trauma and, things of that nature.
When she left, Mandy, did you keep in contact with him?
I did, unfortunately. I did,
Okay.
up until about 12 years
Oh,
old. And so when I was about 6, I had my very first experience with God. And I wouldn't know that at the time, of course. But my father, my bio dad, I call him by his name, was drunk driving and rushing to a baseball game. And I never wore my seatbelt because I always needed to be able to move around and see the road, when in the car with him. And I prayed to God. We were driving so fast and catching air on these back country roads. And I just prayed to God, please don't let us crash. And I put my seatbelt on and we slammed into the tree. And I couldn't possibly know, but I'm sure that saved my life. I'm sorry to already get emotional, guys.
You're good.
Don't apologize.
6 years old. Wow.
So that was a very deep experience to reflect upon, but also very traumatic at the time. And even as an adult, obviously, to revisit. From there, it was back and forth to his house when he was available. So I was exposed to more trauma, unfortunately, until I was about 12 years old, like I said. And by that time, I had already such a poor self-esteem that when I started engaging in harmful behaviors like cutting and bulimia, it was a very natural progression into substances.
And that started at 12?
13.
Wow.
Yep.
13.
Well, the cutting and the bulimia, 12.
Okay.
and the substances came in at 13. But I can definitely recognize like those feelings you hear talked about often, never feeling like I fit in, never feeling like I had anyone to turn to, always feeling like I had to internalize and deal with self. And surprisingly, I had a really bright future educationally. That was the one place I really flourished. And that would obviously take a dive once I started using, unfortunately. But yeah, so it was, I guess, it was already in the making from the beginning.
Can you take us through the progression a little bit, like what it was like from 13 on? What did you start with when you were 13?
So at 13, with a broken heart, my very first one, I started with alcohol and I started with way too much. My addiction was never fun. It never took me to fun places or fun feelings. It just took me to obliteration. And that's what I wanted. I just didn't want to think or feel any of it.
Is that why you were drinking to numb the feelings? Is that how you looked at it?
Certainly. Certainly. I mean, I didn't look at it that way. I just looked at it as an escape. But
You realize you know that
looking
now,
back.
but back then, yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. And then it progressed to harder things a little bit later. Older boyfriends, way too old, harder drugs, more money, involved with people who sold drugs. Just really a really hard lifestyle at a very young age. And I started going to treatment at 15. And so my battle with treatment would be long, 20 years or more. So
How many treatment facilities to date?
I haven't really officially counted, but I would say somewhere close to about how old I am.
Wow.
So, and a lot of those were accrued in the last 18 months of using because I just
That could
kept
be some kind of
going back
record.
and back and back and
You
back.
never gave up.
Never gave up, I tell you what. And so I moved on to opiates when I was 17. I got that older boyfriend, and it started with painkillers. Unfortunately, when that relationship ended, so did the drugs. So now I was left to pay for them. And I hear so many people share this that, oh, try heroin. It's cheaper. You'll get more high. And so that's what it was for me. And it was straight to injecting. Someone injected me, and I quickly learned. And that was really the beginning of, I'd say, the end. I mean, it all was from the beginning. I wish I never picked up a substance ever, but that's not where we are.
Do you really remember that first time, how you felt?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember just like that feeling of exhale, just like, oh my God, I can just listen to the music and I don't have to feel broken. And that's what I chased. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what
So
I've been missing this whole time.
This is what's been missing in my life.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was, I mean,
exactly.
for me, that
Yep.
was, I was like, oh, wow, this is
Yep.
that piece that I've been missing this
And
whole time.
you think that
Yep.
maybe other people have that naturally, right? Because that's not the case either.
Yeah.
And
Well, a lot of people do, unfortunately. No, unfortunately, I guess.
Lucky for them.
Yeah, good for them.
Must be nice.
Which is always good, but yeah, I really want to get into the last few years though, because those are really what have hit the hardest. I had a period of semi-sobriety, and I say that because at the time I felt like I was clean and sober, but having the quality of recovery that I have right now, I know different. And that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So what was that though? So what did you view as clean and sober then that is different now?
Just a closer spiritual connection to God, asking for guidance, open to suggestion, just being honest, open minded, and willing all around.
And where is
Gotcha.
your mom in all of this?
Oh my God. She is my
All right.
rock. She is, I don't know what I would do without her. She is the most wonderful person on earth. She would say otherwise. And then the person I call my dad is, yeah, they met when I was 5. And so he has been in my life for many, many years, over 30 years. And they married after 25. And yeah, so
Wow.
I have been lucky in that area. definitely.
And so what did the last couple of years look like?
So I relapsed, and I guess I'll just tell it how it is. So,
You're
excuse
good,
me.
Mandy.
Yeah, you're
Um,
good.
and someone that was clean at the time that I was close with, they relapsed and they told me. And to me, that was it. That was all the permission I needed to flush everything I had gone or put together in that semi sobriety time down the toilet. And this is, mind you, right in the middle of the pandemic. I can't skip over that. Okay. So March 16th, 2020, my job shut down. What also shut down was my outpatient, any kind of support system I had. And I didn't have a root in spirituality, like I already said, or recovery. So I was just lost, and then the money
Mm.
started coming, and from unemployment and stimulus, and it was just a recipe for disaster for me. And I started using, and I apologize, I'm saying yum so many times.
Don't be sorry.
So I started using fentanyl, and I had used fentanyl before.
Okay, that was my next question. Yeah.
I had, but not the new fentanyl, and I say the new fentanyl because 'cause I'm talking about the stuff they have right now that's with the xylazine, which if you don't know about it, we don't have enough time to educate you, but Google it, it's what's in the fentanyl right now, and they say it makes people walking zombies, and that's pretty much what it did. It knocked me out completely. I I didn't live. I was unconscious for 3 years, I say. I don't That's how I refer to it because every time I woke up, I was right back out. That's what my life had become. And in this process, I had obviously, well, not obviously, but I had lost my children.
Mm.
I was going to ask you
And I
about
will mention, yeah, I have 4 children and I did lose them. Not to spoil the ending, but they are home. So let's just get you there
Yeah,
already so you don't have
that's
That's a good
really
to.
ending to
great.
spoil. Yeah. Yeah.
They are home, but for for a year and a half of them being gone, I was using, and I was using. And I
And
was in and
that
out of
was like the
treatment.
March 16th time.
Let's see, March 2022. So I had already been using for quite some time.
Okay.
I did it to you, huh?
But
COVID
huh.
had a huge effect.
Yes, yes, yes. And I can say this now because it's over. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to say it's fortunate they were taken. It's fortunate they didn't witness what I went through.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair
Um,
enough.
and so after they were taken, I can revisit that moment that I came home. I knew they were gone, and I walked into the house, and it was completely silent, and everything I had was gone. And
Is that the biggest rock bottom you've ever had?
whew, no, not yet. Surprisingly, I kept going. I kept digging.
Isn't that
Um,
amazing? Like, what we hit these rock bottoms and then we go, that wasn't enough. Let me go see if I can find another one.
Shoo! You would think, right? The kids are gone. Let me get better.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. In reality, it doesn't happen that easily for most people.
Once the kids were gone, was it almost like I really have like a reason to keep going? Like I can keep using? Is it?
It was like everybody's mad at me. I am
Yeah.
so alone. I have nothing to life other than this. But at the same time, I was in and out of treatment. So I kept going back knowing I needed to get help. And I say I accrued so many of those visits in those last 18 months. I went 15 times in
Oh,
18
wow.
months. So you can imagine every few weeks I was in and out. So it was not just this like free for all using because the kids were gone. It was trying so just over and over to get help. But I was so sick that I couldn't
And you're
stay
hurting
until
so
I
much
did.
too. But with fentanyl, I mean, that is so addictive, and you must have had such a high tolerance. I mean, we're talking a few years ago, so at that time, it was become more widely known how dangerous it was. Did that ever scare you?
I hear this from a lot of addicts. I'm not alone in this. The feeling of it won't happen to me.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
the exception. It doesn't even cross your mind. And if it does, it's like, well, that would be a relief. I honestly, you'd be doing me a favor. So death wasn't real, and any correlation I had with it in my mind wasn't a negative one. It's not that I was suicidal or trying to die. It was just, I don't know what the right word is. It was just using with abandon. There you go.
Sure. Now,
So
the 15 trips to treatment, was that 15 trips to the same place?
mostly
Do
there
you wanna
was,
talk about that at all?
yeah, I'm not going to say the specific place, but I have a deep relationship with them and I owe
Okay.
them my life and many, many years of treatment and seeing me in all different kinds of conditions. They've been in my outpatient treatment life, my medicated assistant treatment life, which we'll talk about a little bit. And so these are people that I trusted with my life and that I knew that whatever I was bringing, they were going to help me and they were going to help me with their heart. And so that I will say, but that is mainly why going back to the same place over and over.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, that's incredible that they kept taking you back, like, they must have seen something in you. There's hope for this girl. She definitely is willing and able and trying and doing her best. Like, that's, kudos to them and kudos to you for, forming that relationship with them.
yep. And you know what? That's a perfect segue into what happened my last visit. So
Mm,
I entered treatment May 5th of 2023, and 6 days later, we had this beautiful women's empowerment event with just the women, and I had gotten just out of the stage of medical detox that they considered, although I was in acute detox, I tell you. And I went to this women empowerment event, and I was a emotional mess, and one of the women that work at the facility, out of all the women of all the treatment centers, because there's several of them on the same property, she said, "And this girl," and she was talking about me, "this girl never gives up. She just keeps coming back." And she picked me up and she held me up sobbing in the middle of that room. And that was the beginning of the end for me. And it was true a
Wow.
spiritual experience.
mhm.
Um, and I got so emotional after that, I left the room. And then the director of the program and a few other people uh, followed me out, and her words to me were, "Do you see that you're meant to be here now?"
Mm.
And that was my first spiritual experience. And 2 days later, I was diagnosed with COVID,
Mhm.
in treatment, told I was going to be put in
Oh
isolation
boy.
with nothing but my head. And I freaked out. I knew that was not gonna work. I knew me and my anxiety in a room in acute detox by myself with nothing but my brain was not a good combination. And so because of that spiritual experience, I had enough hope to ask for what I needed, which in that case was something to distract me. And they gave me a computer, which they had done for other clients, and I logged on to Netflix, and for 12 days, I kept my brain distracted. And that COVID was probably the gift I needed to get through that period of detox. And I'm just realizing as I speak it that I had never hadn't been able to get through up to that point. And then immediately upon coming out of COVID detox, I went into long term. And on went my long term treatment for mm, a little over 2 months. I came home and I felt very stagnant. I didn't have much of a plan in place. I just didn't have much of
Is,
a plan. And other than that I wanted to go to school. That was the plan I knew I wanted.
is that the
Um
longest you had gone to treatment?
the longest anytime recently, yes. I had been in treatment longer than that as an adolescent,
But this time it's different.
which is semi of a choice, but not really. So yeah, kind of this was the longest that I had been in treatment as an adult and voluntarily, and yeah, throughout this battle. And I do want to mention how physically ill I was all throughout these treatments. I had holes all over my body, these sores, these wounds, these 8 layers of skin deep burns from the fentanyl and xylazine all over my body, having to enter into treatment in and out of the hospital with sepsis and cellulitis. So it was, it did quite the number on my body, medically, physically. It's almost like not looking at the same
Yeah.
person anymore, to be honest with you.
I was gonna say, because you look great
Right.
now. I mean, it's amazing to
I
think
was
that,
just going to say that for our listeners. First of all, Mandy, you are beautiful. You're also very
Thank you
articulate
so
and very
much.
smart. And I can't imagine
Aw.
that because you speak with such conviction now. And congratulations for your hard work.
Thank you, and thank you. And a lot of people say that, and when I tell them I'm in recovery, and it kinda makes me laugh because I know where I came from and how
Right.
dark it was.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate it every time someone feels that way about me, because it speaks to how far I've come.
Wow.
For
And,
sure.
um, it's truly been a blessing. And so when I came home from treatment and I was stagnant, I knew that if I didn't do something, I was gonna do what I knew to do, which was use. And so I entered into outpatient. I started going to the gym.
Hang on,
I
let me
enrolled in
stop you for
schools.
1
Yeah,
second.
sure, sure.
So if you see that awareness, what do you accredit that awareness to? Because you've come out of treatment before, right? And have gone back to using. What is different this time? Like,
Oh,
what was that
I'm
pause?
so glad you asked that. It was the long term, Kurt, because the
Okay,
bottom line is for someone that has used for so long,
for
such
sure.
hard drugs, you are not going to be detoxified in 2 weeks. You may be medically cleared for detox or whatever, but it takes months, years for this stuff to leave you. Pause, post-acute withdrawal syndrome.
Well,
Um,
according to Dr.
so
Stephen Lloyd, right, Kurt? What is it? 2 years it takes for
18 to 2
your brain
years,
to
yeah.
get
Yeah,
normalized
yeah.
again.
Yep.
Wow.
And that's like a really frustrating piece. And I'm so glad that you got that. I'm so glad that we're talking about this because I think that's such an important factor is that we put these people into treatment and then they get out after, 14, 21 days, they relapse. We get mad and we're like, why isn't this working? And for those of us that either have gone through it or in the field, we go, well, because there's not enough time. And it's like, why can't we get the insurance companies and the treatment facilities to, provide long term care?
I will tell you that I think that's one benefit I've had of having public health care for the
Mm,
time being,
mm.
is the availability to long-term treatment. And although it may not be these um, hoity-toity, top-of-the-line places, which honestly, the place I went was brand new at the time. It was rebuilt, brand new, beautiful. So happy for them.
Well,
But
and in my experience, I'm not knocking the hoity-toity, pay-per-view kind of places, but those tend to be more
cushy.
financially driven as opposed to recovery based. And I know they do work for some people, but in my experience, it's the nitty-gritty, you know, grassroots organizations that do the real work.
Definitely. You don't need to be I mean, in a sense, you do need to be babied, but you don't. You need the hard truths. You just need them delivered correctly, right? And you need
Yeah.
and you need to hear them when you're ready to hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what came
Yeah.
after that?
So I did all these things. I enrolled in school at the local community college, started going to the gym, was attending.
Had you been in college before? Sorry, I don't mean to keep
No,
interrupting.
I
Okay.
haven't. I've
So that was a
been,
huge first step.
yes. And I tested right into regular classes, which was
That's
Wow.
awesome.
amazing.
That's
Well, you
Yes,
great.
said you did very
yes,
well in school when, that was something that
I did. Although it was short lived, I was a straight A student up until I quit. So, yes.
Cool.
And so going back has been, oh, it's just been the most wonderful experience to be an older student and I don't know what it's like to be a younger student, right? I don't have anything to compare it to, but I do know as an older student, I am aware of myself and I am aware of where I want my life to go. And I'm also aware of the missteps I've made. So I feel like attending a school as an adult is really a privilege. And I've definitely had some teachers give me grace these last 2 semesters. I've had to specifically really work with me and make sure that I was where I needed when I needed to be there. It's just been an all around
Did
great
they
experience for socializing as an adult, for recovery, for confidence.
did they know that you were in recovery? Your teachers, your professors?
Yes, the teachers that I'm
Okay.
speaking of, yep. I made them aware actually of my life very, Allison, we've said this, I've said this to you before. I really don't know any other way but to be personal. So if I'm going to strike a conversation or a relationship with you, it's going to be a real one. And so and they were both women, really have helped me along the way and helped me
That's
become a
awesome.
better student and find my shortcomings as a
Good
student
for
as well.
you.
That's great.
That's fantastic and remarkable, Mandy. You should be feeling very proud.
I do. I do. I'm definitely my worst critic, but then I have wonderful people in my life like you guys, and of course the people in my support system who are constantly reminding me of who I am today, despite those who don't want to let me forget who I was.
And that's kind of the segment that I want to jump into, if that's cool with you, is what your program looks like now, like what your sobriety looks like now, what your support group looks like now, what you do for yourself on a daily basis. You mentioned the gym, so like some self-care stuff. Yeah, where are we at today?
So today my life looks very different than when I got out of treatment. When I first got out of treatment, I was by myself. And although I had a lot of commitments, when you're by yourself, things are a little bit simpler. When the kids came home, it just was an addition, a transition of adding everyone's appointments, making sure everyone gets to their mental health treatment while I'm also still maintaining the things that I need in my life, which include outpatient. It includes, I've mentioned, medicated assisted treatment. So for me, what that looks like is methadone. And I will say right now, I am at 50% of my dose. So I'm on a scheduled taper, which is
Nice.
amazing.
Nice.
And if all goes well, in 10 weeks, I will be, I think 10 weeks. Is that, yeah, 10 weeks. 10 weeks I'll be
That's
off.
great.
So
How do you
wow.
feel about that?
The lower
Not
we
to like
go, the quicker it comes. Wow.
right.
I feel great. I feel great. I do. I
You feel
do.
good about coming off of it.
I feel so ready
And it
for
worked for
sure.
Cool.
you.
That's
And
awesome.
today they have other things like Vivitrol,
Yeah.
Sublocade.
Yeah.
For those that don't know what Sublocade is, it's Suboxone in a shot, but you don't have the withdrawal. Once every I think you only get 3 shots total, and it lasts an entire year. So they really have some new treatments out there that I don't necessarily have to come off methadone cold turkey. Like I can step down to something that keeps me accountable, stay engaged in treatment, and also still maintain some medical assistance.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's great, and I'm glad to hear that you're tapering off. I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday about like the pros and cons to it. And I'm all for medicated assisted treatment
Me
as
too.
long as there is that end game, and that end game is to be able to be self-reliant and stand on your own 2 feet. And like, I think it's awesome
Yeah.
the way that you're doing that.
I
So
think
props to you.
I think the key word is treatment. And
Mhm.
if you're just getting medically assisted or
Yes.
medicated assisted, you're not getting treatment. You need to
Yes.
use the outpatient and the therapy and the
The whole
counselors
thing.
and
Yeah.
the front desk lady and the nurse who doses you. And you need to use them
Yeah.
all because that's what they're there for. And if they're not, then God bless
And the
them.
fact that just medically assisted treatment with no treatment, if you will, is even a thing. It seems crazy to me. Like that should be a condition that if
Exactly.
you're taking these things, that you're in therapy, that you're in a
Yep.
program, that you're doing a 12-step, whatever it looks like for your recovery program, that should be a mandated thing. Like you should not be allowed to.
It has been working, and it does work. I think the
Yeah, that's awesome.
important part is, and I haven't mentioned this enough, is my constant contact with God as well and women in recovery. I have a mentor who I work closely with who has walked the same path that I'm walking professionally. I don't want to say too much because it's not my story, but she's awesome. I love her to death. I know she's listening. Girl, I love you. I couldn't do this without you. So, yeah, so I have a mentor, I have outpatient, I have my medicine, I have my women who are a lot the women that I keep in contact with do mostly go to the 12-step meetings and groups, but that's not a part of my recovery. And I think
Cool.
that that's important to emphasize because not everybody's recovery looks the
Exactly.
same. It's individual as the person.
Mm.
And I think for anybody to decide what your recovery should look like is an overstep and an
I
overreach for
want to
sure.
touch upon something because this is interesting for Kurt and I from our perspective. You are the first woman in like really that has had this shared experience with many other people in recovery that we've interviewed, but there have all been men. And so I think the courage that you have to speak your story, I really hope inspires other women because it's a little different. Like, can we talk a little bit more about what happened with your kids? We know that they're back home now, but
Absolutely.
they're doing well.
They're doing amazing. And I'm glad you brought that up because the most important thing that I think I want to get across today is to the broken families out there that there is hope that you can have your family back. And despite how it feels right now, and despite the pain that you're feeling, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. If you just don't give up. Just keep trying. Just keep giving yourself a chance. And as long as you keep trying one of these days, it's going to stick.
Kind of on that same note, as far as having men come on versus women come on, and you being a woman in recovery with kids, do you have any thoughts or anything to say about women in recovery with kids and the stigma associated with that?
I definitely do. And I've mentioned it. I don't know if I've mentioned it to you guys before, but if you go into a treatment center and you take a look around, there's usually about a quarter the amount of women as there is men.
Mm.
And I promise you, that's not because there's less women that need help. I can tell you for myself, as a woman who has had partners that have left or not played a role in their child's life.
And the stigma, because the way that I look at it is not all the time, but some of the time, moms are left with the kids and the dads. I'll just speak for myself. Like my ex-wife during my use, granted she had primary custody, but I kind of just threw up my arms. I said, I can't do this. Like I'm using, you have the kids, like I'm out of here. And I feel like oftentimes moms sometimes don't maybe have that luxury unless the kids are taken.
And
Do
you're
you know what I mean?
absolutely right. And as someone with multiple kids, and as someone with children who are not, they've been through a lot. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily easy children,
Yeah, I
especially
mean,
for
no
a
kids
separate
are really
caretaker.
Yeah.
easy. Yeah,
Right,
no kids
right?
are
Keep it
easy
in
kids, you know?
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that women are inclined to, like for me, I'll just be for me. The only person that I ever had to take my children was my parents. And I'm getting older, so are they. And you can only take little kids for so long. As a 70-year-old person with, physical disabilities, multiple children is just not happening. So I wish that was an option for my family, but I completely understand why it wasn't. And my parents did watch my children a lot when I went to treatment. There was a lot of watching while I went to treatment, but I will tell you, those were the times where I was in and out as quick as possible, because every day it was, "When are you coming home, Mandy? They won't listen, Mandy. Please come home, Mandy. Please, when?" And when you have that kind of outside pressure, there's nothing else you can focus
That's a really interesting point, and I can relate to that because when I was in treatment as well, I didn't have that because I wasn't allowed to see my son, and that removal um, allowed me the space that I needed to focus on myself without any distractions, without anything calling me out. And I think that's kind of why they say like no relationships in early recovery. Focus on yourself because all those things can take you out of
Yeah,
yourself and take the focus off of you, which is most
for
important during
sure.
that time.
Yeah, and like you're saying, of course, if I had a do-over or a time machine or the ability to take back the pain that I've caused my family and my children, I would. But in
But you
hindsight,
can do that. You can do that by going forward and living the life that you're living today and setting the
Yes,
example for them. Because I think that honestly, it's a more powerful example by you making the mistakes that you made, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and living this life of recovery, sobriety, purpose, and leading by
leading by
example.
example,
yes,
model behavior.
yes, yes.
I think that's a more valuable lesson. I understand though, like I know that kind of torn feeling of like, oh man, I really wish I hadn't put my kids through that. But you know what? Like we all get put through stuff. Unfortunately, it wasn't intentional. You didn't do it maliciously, and they're gonna grow up to be stronger people because they have you as this recovery role model who is living this
Are
great
you
life
able
now.
to talk about, with your older kids, are you able to openly talk about this with them?
What are your kids' ages? Do you mind sharing that? Or a
So
range at least?
yeah, sure. I'll share a range, between 15 and 6.
Cool.
So a little range, not
Yeah.
too much for
Yeah.
4 kids. But the last 3 were pretty back to back. So,
Have you had any conversations with your
oh, yes.
15-year-old
Okay.
old?
I would say my kids are pretty well aware of not my youngest and maybe not my second youngest, but they're pretty well aware of, just because of
Yeah.
what they've been through. But I'm also not shy about celebrating with them, right? Like they're my closest
Yeah.
people, and when I have something to celebrate, well damn, I'm going to celebrate it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they do. They celebrate in a lot of my
That's
wins with
great.
me, which is a
I
That's
beautiful
think it's
awesome.
thing. Yeah.
more
Yeah, that really
harmful
is.
to hide it from them because then it just is confusing because kids know what's a lot. They know a lot.
And I think it's important to mention is this is a genetic disease, and
Mm.
we have to arm our children with the knowledge, right? So, how can my kid know that this can be something that could be so life changing and detrimental if I don't tell
Yeah.
them and if I try to hide it? And so far, as far as I know, I let me find some wood. We're moving along. You know what? We're moving along.
Good. That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
Before we go, we met in a very interesting way. And I want to congratulate you on a scholarship you received for your
Mm.
education, which, by the way, you're
Thank
almost
you.
finished with school, right?
So I'm finished with one part, but I have a ways to go in the other. So I'm going into the healthcare industry, and so it'll be a little ways, but we're gonna start one move at a time.
That
Baby
that's
steps.
Baby
great.
steps, definitely.
Yeah, but can you talk about the scholarship a little bit though?
Yeah, if you guys don't
Because
mind.
I think that's worth mentioning, and if people are interested, I think it's a cool thing to hear about.
So I actually obtained, if it's
Of
okay
course.
for me to say,
Yeah, absolutely.
the Joseph Albert Hakimian Fund, or Legacy Fund, excuse me. I want to do it justice. And then the Seth J. Winter
Yeah.
Memorial Foundation.
Yes, we interviewed the Winters.
Okay, they're wonderful people. Yes, and that's how we met.
They're
Oh.
awesome. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah, so they both helped me with a scholarship and then had the opportunity.
So I'm not familiar with the other one, but the Winters one, that is for people in recovery who are trying to
Better themselves.
any kind of certification, anything. He says anybody at any
Cool.
stage in recovery, it's just apply for it. And the other
That's
one,
awesome.
the Joseph Albert Hakimian Legacy Fund, is specifically geared towards people in early recovery that are going into healthcare field. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Did you
Yep.
write an essay? You
I
wrote an essay?
did.
Great.
I did. There
Yeah.
was criteria, and I had to write a nice long essay, and yeah.
You speak so well and you tell
That's
your
great.
story very well. So I'm
I hope
actually not
so.
Yeah.
surprised.
And we only got, I feel like we
Like,
only just scraped the surface of it. Is there anything else as we begin to wrap up, unfortunately, is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with, or anything that we didn't touch upon that you want to touch upon?
And I want to interject
yeah.
also any advice that you have for particularly a young woman or a young girl struggling.
Yeah, really. Put the pressure on. I think, honestly, I think the song after the show is going to give you all the important advice you need to be a young person, or a young person possibly struggling in recovery, or just struggling to find their identity. So I'm really excited for everybody to listen. If I had any piece of advice to give, it would be to never give up on yourself. That is the number one key. Because if you don't ask for help, if you don't go back for help, you can't get it. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, and you're living proof of that. I mean, like, it's really incredible to hear that you've been through just about as many treatment facilities as you are, years on this earth, and to have never given up is just that's really wild. I mean, there's so many people who didn't give up, but just didn't make it, and for you to have had so many opportunities really is a blessing. So, for myself, I know for Allison, we're super
Yeah.
stoked that you're here with us today and we got to share some of your story, and would love to have you on again to maybe get into some more stuff
Follow
and
up,
hear more
yeah.
of your story
yes, the
because
further I go,
yeah,
yes, we'll have to be an
yeah,
update
absolutely.
guest.
Yeah, for sure. For
But
sure.
yes, please,
you
just
were
don't give up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody out there, don't give up. Take Mandy's advice, and you are incredibly inspirational today. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Oh my
And
God, thank you so much for having me, really. And thank you, you all listeners. Allison has been so wonderful with me. I have nervous texted her for weeks about this, and she has just been a dear to work with. And I just
oh,
want everybody to hear that.
oh, thank you. Well, you have an incredible future ahead of you. You do realize you're in the prime of your life. 38 is very young, and there's no doubt that you are going to move on to help many other people. You're so inspiring, and you definitely seem like a wonderful mother. So you have a great.
That's what I was gonna say. Not you're gonna help everybody else. That's great and everything, but I think like the most important people you're gonna help are
Yeah,
your kids, and just keep doing what you're doing and keep leading by example and being that awesome mom
Thank
because
you.
you're
And
doing a
thank
great
you,
job.
guys. Thank you so much for everything.
your family must be so proud of you, and I'm sure Thanksgiving this year is very special.
Yep, we have a lot to be grateful for, and a
Yes.
lot coming. I know
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
And that's another thing. Every time you're facing a struggle, there's something beautiful on the other side. And that has been the main thing that has gotten me through, and giving myself enough time and experience to see that come to fruition has been a gift. So give yourself the same one, and give yourself time and space to get clean, because it's worth it.
Great words of
Cool.
advice from Mandy. Mandy from Maryland, recovery superstar. And you're going to make a great therapist and help other people. And
Thank you so
uh,
much.
we're keep going, Mandy. You're
I
doing
will,
great.
and I'll definitely love to come back on. Thank you guys so much, and
Yeah.
good luck, listeners.
Thank you, Mandy. I sincerely thank everyone who supports our cause and understands how important it is to look out for each other and to empathize with anyone dealing with addiction. Let's continue to spread awareness about the dangers of illicit fentanyl and promote harm reduction tools like Narcan and fentanyl test strips. Reach out to us via Instagram at sbu.playitforward for more recommendations.
If you are struggling with mental health or substance use, you're not alone. SAMHSA offers services and resources for substance use disorder at 1-800-662-HELP or text HELP number 4U for support. SAMHSA also has a 24/7 info service at 1-800-487-4889. For additional help, you can visit Hope House Ministries online at hhm.org or call 631-928-2377. LICAD offers support and guidance at 631-979-1700, and you can find more information at licad.org. BeyondTheOpioidCrisis.com is also a resource to check out some strategies for hope amidst the opioid and fentanyl crisis. LICAD of Long Island distributes fentanyl test strips as part of their free Narcan kits. Please have Narcan accessible. You can save the life of someone overdosing even when it's least expected. Thank you all for listening. We invite you to join us on Instagram at sbu.playitforward, and you can also follow us on YouTube at the Play It Forward Project. And we hope to hear from you. We hope that our message reaches somebody. So for now and always,
keep playing it forward. So Mandy picked out, it's not really a song, but we have something very special we're going to play that she picked out, and I listened to it and I loved it, and I think everyone else is going to love it. Definitely words to live by. Do you want to introduce it, Mandy?
Okay. It's Baz Luhrmann. It's a remix, and it's Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen.
So there we go. Everybody wears sunscreen.
Yeah.
It's Black Friday. It's the day after Thanksgiving. Everybody get out there and put your sunscreen on and
Get to shopping.
Thank you, Mandy. And thank you, Kurt and WUSB. And listen to our closing song. We will be back in 2 weeks with another great guest. You are listening to WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM. Be well, everyone, and please look out for one another. Thank you, WUSB family. This Thanksgiving, we're overflowing with gratitude for WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM, the station that gives us the platform to make a difference. On behalf of my co-host Kurt and everyone at Play It Forward, we're asking you, our amazing listeners, to help us stay on the air and keep delivering the stories, insights, and hope that matter. Pick up the phone and donate now to our fall radiothon. Call us toll-free at 1-888-632-9872 or 631-632-6901. Or visit us online at wusb.fm to chip in whatever you can. Every dollar keeps the music playing, the voices sharing, and the mission alive. From all of us at WUSB and Play It Forward, thank you for your love and support. Have a joyful holiday season. Stay safe, and as always, look out for one another. Happy Thanksgiving.